record this session, so heads up, we're recording, so we can share later. Yeah, and it is about time to get started. Are we good to jump in?
Go for it.
Okay, and let me make sure, I'm just pulling up. Oh, I can't minimize Zoom when I'm recording this. That's going to make it difficult. Has anyone else faced that? You can't minimize Zoom when you're recording?
I have never tried to record before.
Okay, maybe I can move. Okay, there we go. So pulling up. Great. And as we're getting started, I just put in the part to everyone can introduce themselves. In the chat, your name, your organization, and your role, and why you came to this session today. It looks like we have 31 participants. So we appreciate you using chat so that we get to know each other, but we don't take the time to introduce each other individually. Okay, great. So moving this back, good thing I got two screens going, and I will share screen. Thanks for bearing with us as we work through the weirdness of technology. Okay, and I should go into present mode. Okay, and notes. Great. Can everyone see that okay? Awesome, thanks. So we'll get started, and this is an interactive session. We'll be doing some of the talking and presenting information, but we also want to hold this space as Allison and I the other day facilitated an open space, and it's a great way to find out what matters to you all. So you all are going to generate some of the questions about halfway through this session, and then break up into breakout rooms so that we can have some just authentic talk. And the idea of open space is that sometimes you're at conferences and there's all this presenting, and then the best learning happens in the hallway in between sessions. So we're going to have some of that hallway time to discuss as well. And we are excited to announce the launch of the Grow Outside online resource. This is something that's been in the works for about 2 years now, that offers tools for implementing social and emotional learning in residential environmental education programs. This is for program leaders, but there's going to be a lot of tools here that are applicable for field instructors and practitioners, for school teachers. So everyone is welcome, whatever your role, everyone is welcome here. All right, who are you? If you haven't already, please type your name, position, organization, and why you're here today in the chat. All right, and introductions. My name is Corey Donnelly. I am the Director of School Programs at Westminster Woods. We are just north of San Francisco, and I was a contributor to this Grow Outside online resource for the past 2 years. And yeah, and so we're happy to share now.
And yeah, my name is Allison Collins. I am the coordinator on site at Camp Jones Gulch for San Joaquin County Office of Education's outdoor education program. So we're a residential outdoor program for 5th and 6th graders in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And I didn't do anything with Grow Outside, but I'm just really excited about this resource and have been sort of like a groupie behind all the social and emotional learning work that worked on that. So.
And Allison and I have facilitated sessions before, and we've been in sessions and talking about SEL, and she's a wonderful facilitator, so I'm really happy to have her here with me. Great, moving on. Okay, so the roadmap for today, introductions, check. We'll go into agreements and goals for our session and the why. Why does this matter? The intersection of SEL and environmental literacy. We'll talk about why this is so relevant and how we can message that to stakeholders. We'll introduce the Grow Outside Toolkit. And then, as I said, we'll go into open space discussion. So yeah, if you're just like, I got something, we'll provide space. But if there's any questions, use the chat and we're happy to answer those as we go along. Great. And Allison, can you see the chat? Are you?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks. And we'll end with some takeaways where everyone comes back together.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to just touch on some workshop agreements from the National Equity Project as we kind of discuss and share specifically around social and emotional learning. So the following tips are to acknowledge one another as equals, to stay curious about each other, to recognize that we need each other's help to become better listeners, slow down so we have time to think and reflect. It's like a message in life right now, slowing down. Remember that conversation is a natural way humans think together. Expect it to be messy at times, and take responsibility for your impact on others. Are there any other agreements that anybody would like to offer up? I can't see everybody's screen, so if you want to just unmute yourself and share, that would be handy, or say it in the chat. Any other workshop agreements we'd like to share? All right, sounds great. Thank you all.
Okay. And whoop. I don't know why it's not moving. Whoa, going back. Okay. There you go.
All right. I want to talk just a little bit about our goals for today. So this sort of came out of, some conversations about, sort of starting with like, how do we support staff and ourselves during this kind of COVID-19 time of uncertainty? And Corey and I worked together for the Beatles Open Space one a couple weeks ago, and realized that like, this is actually a perfect time for us to be leaning into, social and emotional learning and applying it to what's happening. So we're hoping today that we can increase our understanding of the role of SEL within residential environmental education, to explore a toolkit for social emotional learning resources, to discuss strategies for supporting social and emotional learning within your community, and to learn about the work of a national partnership. Many of you wrote down some great things on the chat about why you're here, which sort of echoed this, just understanding a little bit more about social and emotional learning, which is great. Was there anything that that anybody would like to give this time that we did not say in this workshop goals or on the chat we want to mention to the group? We want to make sure this is meaningful for all of you. And once again, just holler if that's you. All right, great, perfect, thanks y'all.
I have one suggestion for a workshop goal is one colleague of mine used the word FAIL as an acronym, first attempt in learning. And a lot of times K through 12 students don't like to fail. And if we rephrase that as the first attempt in learning, hopefully it might enhance social emotional awareness.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think that's a really good lens to look at it. And I don't know if how many of you are familiar with Brene Brown's new podcast, Unlocking Us, is really great. But her first episode is talking about like FFTs, which is an expletive, and then first time, and talking about like that hesitancy on learning new things, which is great. And I highly recommend that podcast if anyone hasn't tried that yet. But yeah, and I think, to Devin's point too, that the reality of social and emotional learning is that it's although it's something I feel like we're hearing much more in the last couple of years, it's not a layer on top of what we're doing in outdoor education or in K-12 education. It's actually the foundation so that kids can access what we're doing in the first place. And I think that it's taking this sort of like larger mind shift about that to realize like, oh, this has always been there, but when we ignored it, we weren't able, that's when we got defiance, you know, and when we got kids that didn't buy in, like that's when we weren't looking at this as the foundation. So I'm really grateful for all of you being our thought partners in this today. Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Wonderfully said. Thanks, Allison. And it seems like it's taking a second. Okay, the why, perfect. So I think we just dug into that. Allison captured it perfectly, that it is the foundation. And I think there's nesting systems that we're also going to look at, a model that we adapted from the castle model of these nesting systems. But how can we support SEL in ourselves? How can we then transfer that to our staff that we are supporting, and the broader community of within residential EE, like our kitchen staff and our housekeeping staff and admin? People may or may not be in work. How are we supporting them during this time, and even to our broader community of teachers and students? Great. So the intersection of EE and SEL, we just want to outline this really clearly, grounded in research. And so on the left, you'll find this was published in the Journal of Environmental Education. And on the right, the Aspen Institute is a wonderful resource for social and emotional and academic development, but for anything SEL, and especially they have some amazing writing on equity and supporting that through SEL. So on the left, that we've got active engagement, cooperative work, student-centered learning, educators' passion for subject matter, reflection, emotional connections, personal relevance, and multiple viewpoints are characteristics of environmental ed. And you can see the connections there to effective SEL with equitable access to learning environments, physical and emotional safety, meaningful relationships between adults and students, intentionally teaching SEL skills, and that students are asked to practice these skills as they learn academic content, interacting with peers and adults. So there's a lot of overlap here. And why SEL? It has been shown that there are countless benefits that are both short-term and long-term. And if we can focus on those as the foundation of education, then it leads to resilience, really pertinent now, inclusiveness, achievement, mindfulness, success, well-being, and school climate. And I actually just copy pasted this, and sorry, this was from a session earlier this morning that I was attending, and it's from the California Environmental Literacy Initiative call to action, and I was like, that's perfect. So I just copy pasted it into our presentation. But California, as they are trying to incorporate environmental literacy into everything that we do. I mean, they even said here in their call to action, decades of research show that teaching towards environmental literacy helps develop California's social and emotional learning based on the CASTLE model, which we will share. Competencies of self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, self-management, and relationship skills. It goes on to say environmental education imparts more than knowledge from Dr. Ardoin at Stanford. It provides a continuum of experiences that support academic, behavioral, and social emotional growth. It goes on, but just to show briefly, there's a lot of research support behind this, and a lot of overlap between social emotional learning and EE. Great.
All right. I'm going to lead you in. I'm going to lead you in an activity called Conocimiento, which Corey introduced to me, which is from the Grow Outside resources, which we'll see in a little bit. This one was shared by Jessica Ziamara Garcia of Learning for Action. And it's a little bit of kind of a grounding, centering activity. So if you feel more comfortable turning off your camera so people aren't seeing you, kind of like close your eyes and sit in your space, feel free to do that. It's up to you on how you feel comfortable with that. But just wanted to let you know about that. This is a little bit of like a let's turn inside. There will be an opportunity for us to share in small groups, and I'll break us into breakout rooms for just a short amount of time to reflect on this activity. So kind of think about that as we're going through, is that we will be in groups of, I'm probably going to do groups of 3 just in case someone walked away to the bathroom so nobody ends up in a room by themselves. But yeah, so that there will be some sharing at the end. All right, so conocimiento is a word in Spanish that means having knowledge of. This is kind of an opportunity for us to center ourselves and kind of, I don't know, gain a little perspective as we move through. All right, so we're gonna get started. Go ahead and find a comfortable position. We're gonna take a few moments to be present. Allow yourself to sit up straight in your chair. Place your feet solidly on the floor. Imagine energy gently spiraling upward from the base of your spine, up through the crown of your head. Let your arms relax and place your palms on your thighs. Soften your face. Relax your shoulders. Put everything down you may be holding. Place your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Take another deep breath in and a slow one out. Notice the rhythm of your breath. We will take 3 deep breaths together. To breathe deeply, we begin first by exhaling, then taking a deep breath in and allowing your ribs, back, and sides to expand. When you breathe out, just relax. Relax your face, shoulders, and just let go. Let go of your thoughts. Take 3 deep breaths at your own pace. Exhale, breathe in deep. Exhale. Now, take a moment to recall being in your favorite place in the world, and keep your eyes closed if they're closed, whatever you feel comfortable with. You could be somewhere in nature. You could be engaged with people. You could be curled up in your bed. If your mind is going back and forth, just pick a place. Imagine that you are in that place. Notice how you feel. Imagine being in this place where you don't need to wear the mask, which was already written in there, but a physical mask and, the mask of what you have to portray in the world. You just get to be your own authentic self. This is a space for you to be aware of that authentic self, your own great beingness. In this place, what colors would you see? Maybe you're able to recall what you might smell, what you might be hearing, or what you'd be feeling. Allow yourself to rest inside the comfort of your own easefulness. In this place, you become aware of your own innate wisdom. It is a precious awareness that lives inside the gift of being alive. Ask yourself this question: what is a quality that I bring or offer freely to others? It could be your courage, your patience, or your gentleness. Name this quality as one of the many good qualities you have. It is simply one example of your own innate greatness. Take a moment to be thankful for this gift. Now, remember a time, a story of when you were being your gift. Remember how it made you feel to offer your gift freely to others. What is the scene? What were you actually doing? How do you operationalize your gift? Take a few deep breaths. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. When we talk about these gifts, actually, sorry, that was too rushed. When you're ready, open your eyes. All right, when we talk about these gifts, we are really referring to our values or elements of our internal moral compass. In just a second, what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna break you into small groups just for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes to share the following questions. You're gonna share, where did you go? Where was your happy place? What is one of your gifts or values? And then what is an example or two of how you operationalize that gift or value? So thinking about like, how do I share that gift or value with the world? I'm gonna put the questions in the chat, but I acknowledge that the chat, I think, goes away once I break you into breakout rooms. Or actually, I think once Corey breaks you into breakout rooms, because I think you have to do it, Corey, since I'm not the host right now.
Okay.
Perfect. And we'll just do about 2 minutes. It'll just be a quick share in your small group, and you should be in a group of probably, I would say, 3-ish.
Great. And we have 33 on the call, so
I would do 11 groups. Sounds good.
Great. Okay. Here you go. I can write the questions in the breakout rooms. Anyone who is still in this area, if anyone wants to discuss the prompts, I'm open to that.
Interesting, but yeah, one of my gifts, I think, is my my ability to like listen and like grow and learn. And I think of a lot of times
Olivia, are you here in the room? Welcome back, everybody. Was that enough time? Oh, never enough. Hi, Jazzy. Hello. Hi, Chinny. Hi, Maggie. Good to see so many faces I recognize.
Hi, Corey.
Hi. Hi, Estrella. Well, I got feedback. It wasn't enough time.
Oh, we was in the middle. We were cooking. We were cooking.
Oh, thanks for taking it on. Awesome. Well, it
Yes.
seems like that's what we need right now. We'll give it everyone, if anyone wants to come back to that in our open space, we welcome that conversation to continue.
Cool. Well, we got the chat thing too here. Hold on.
Great. Yeah, if anyone wants to share something they heard that touched them, that resonated, you're welcome to share. And I'm going to share screen and continue on with my information sharing.
Well, in my breakout session of the 3 of us that were in there, 2 of us felt that curiosity as it links to inquiry and creativity are a great way to really show our emotional connection to learning about the outside world
Beautiful.
and natural phenomena.
That resonates with me. I totally feel that. Great. Okay, if there are any more comments, please share in the chat. We've got that going on, so we'll keep monitoring. Awesome perspective and listening. I'm seeing in connection from Estrella. Thanks, Estrella. Great. So that, like Allison said, was one of the tools that was included in our Grow Outside social and emotional learning toolkit for residential environmental learning centers. And so I'm going to pull that up and just do some exploration with y'all. Great. And can you give me a thumbs up if you see Maggie or Devin? Do you see the Grow Outside website now? Awesome. Okay, great. So a bit of a map of this website. It's organized in an organizational context. So like how we look at our organization as a whole, and this is particularly useful for program leaders or organizational leaders. Field practice, which gives a lot of tools for field instructors, but also anyone who's engaged in designing training or looking at what is being taught in the field, so curriculum development. The residential setting is a way for us to look at how we can embed social emotional learning into the experience of being at a sleepaway program and engaging stakeholders. How do we craft a message to communicate clearly the benefits of social and emotional learning across all residential EE programs? And so I'm just going to go to the overview and about us. And I want to share. Great, we're going to start here. So this is the model that we adapted from Castle. And Castle is an amazing resource. If you haven't looked at it before, I recommend it highly. And it has these competencies of self-awareness and self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, And what we did is we created this visual to show how these are nesting systems of what's happening within your field groups and the practices and policies that support that is also supported by the residential setting, the community partners, and then all supported by the outdoor environment, which we're putting forth the idea that actually being outdoors is a form of supporting social and emotional learning. Great. And then just a few highlights. Actually, I'm going to go. It's taking a little while to load, but we'll get there. Awesome. And just so you know, the organizations that worked on this resource came from all across the country. It was spearheaded by Nature Bridge, but they took applications for anyone who wanted to apply. They got over 60 applications for organizations, and they chose organizations based on their geographic location, trying to get a diverse range of communities that they serve and places all around the country. For organizational context, I'm going to highlight a couple of our tools that are really useful that I would recommend. And we have, for every heading here, we have reflection tools, which if you're looking for a starting place, we recommend create a task force that wants to take on this work, and then next step, use these reflection tools to self-assess. And so here you go, assemble team, use tool, discuss, and then choose actions that you're going to take. And so an example is, to what degree does our organization have a clearly identified and widely understood mission, vision, and set of values? Moving down, to what degree does the organization have mechanisms to assess how closely we're reaching our intended goals and outcomes? So that's an example. Moving back to field practice, this will be useful. Let me see if I can find it. But so we've broken this into the learning environment, targeted instruction, and embedded opportunities. And something that really came together in our training at Westminster Woods is that I think SEL used to very much be these like isolated incidents that happened within team building or on our challenge course. And as we have looked more at SEL as part of everything we do, it has become really ingrained in everything in a way that if we are running a science investigation, we're also asking for students to reflect on the way that they were self-aware, or they self-managed, or they worked well with others. Oops. Can't go there. And targeted, let's see if I can find what I'm looking for. Well, overview, list of tools, perfect. So I'll just navigate to it a different way. On the overview page, we also have a list of tools. So, student debrief questions, that's what I'm looking for. So we have printed these up for field practitioners, and they're under each of the competencies. So starting with self-awareness, if we want to help any of our field educators develop self-awareness with within their students, we can offer these cards and they can share them with their students. But a great training technique that was that we've used is saying, before just handing them the questions, we said, okay, self-awareness, we are going to facilitate an activity, and maybe that's even a science activity, team building, whatever activity that is, but how would you ask students to reflect on their self-awareness, and let the instructors or the naturalists generate those questions themselves before giving them this list. And I mean, they come up with amazing ideas, as I'm sure you're not surprised. Great, and I'm just going to share one more thing that I love about our resource here. And so the heart of the program for residential EE, there is this like comic that there was a artist in residence at Tremont out in Tennessee. And so you can download this to share with schools, share with students. Students can color it. It's a great resource before heading to camp. And it really does highlight all of the fears kind of that come along with sleeping away. And I think with any trepidation, like the growth that comes out of it, like, where did my sleeping bag go? Where's the bathroom? How am I going to navigate this terrain in my wheelchair? All the possible concerns that then at the end get resolved, as I'm sure we've seen in our program. Great, I said one more, but I forgot to share engaging stakeholders. And here there are some amazing examples of stories from organizations. And I love this one, like Nature Bridge highlights SEL in grant applications, and they have like actual verbiage that you can utilize, like, oh, that's a really good way of saying that. Grant example 1 and 2. So helping organizations focus on SEL as they're communicating out to their stakeholders. Great. So in summary, we've got organizational context, field practice, the residential setting, engaging stakeholders, all the ways that SEL can be embedded into your organization, and that we can really support students during this time. Okay, great. So I'm going to stop share there. How's everyone doing? Thermometer, you with me? Awesome.
Yeah, that website, Corey just sent it to me this week and I was like waiting for it, but there's so much in there. So I feel like there's a lot of navigation to do.
I just scratched the surface. So yeah, definitely dig into that. And I'm going to pull up our.
I don't think we had a slide about our open space groups on here.
Oh, okay, great. So we will, awesome. We can go straight into our open space. And so great, I'm going to stop share then. Thanks, Allison. And do you want to facilitate like the question generation?
Sure, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect. So we're gonna break up into groups, I think, that like feel like like-minded ideas and thoughts of what we want to discuss with social and emotional learning. And we had sort of thought of some ideas of things to break up, but then we thought maybe it would be smarter to just kind of pull from the crowd. And what I'll do is I'll kind of jot down the ideas and then see if we can kind of branch them into some different categories. Like maybe there's some folks that want to really just like look at the website, ask each other questions. There's some folks that want to look at like how do we maintain our own self-awareness in terms of emotional intelligence here? How do we support social and emotional learning in this? But if anybody wants to share in the chat or just go ahead and hop out, what are some ideas of things that you could use about 10 minutes in a small group to discuss? Haha, that's a great one. So distance learning for social and emotional learning. I think that's a perfect heading. Other ideas? Yeah, distance learning for SEL, best practices, and benefits. Embedding SEL as well. Social distancing SEL. Good one. How to introduce. Awesome. These all look great. I'm noticing a couple different themes here.
Can I clarify mine?
Yeah, go for it.
So as a sixth grade science teacher, I don't know much about the fifth graders. And so if my school and other schools are distance learning next year, whatever plan the district decides, SEL will be tough because I won't have a very detailed background of my students because I would have never seen them in person. So that kind of links to another question there, but that was the clarification.
Perfect. That sounds good. Awesome. I'm wondering if it makes sense as I'm looking at this list to maybe have one group that talks about like social and emotional learning in COVID-19 world with like distance, Zoom, social distancing. So one that's kind of like focused on that. Another one that's just focused on like best practices for SEL and maybe just like navigating the like a little bit of the Grow Outside website. And then nobody mentioned, but I want to just throw this out there and see if I get any nods. Are there people that are interested in like how the self-awareness piece, you know, like how do we develop our own emotional intelligence? How do students develop their own kind of things like that in terms of the self? Not as much. Okay. Do people feel like, and give me a thumbs up, do you feel like you could, if we want to go into just SL in general and then SEL and COVID-19, does that feel good for folks? Is there anybody that doesn't feel like they have a home in that? Feels okay? Perfect. I think the easiest way to do it is if you want to just rename your name and just put, let's just put either like general in parentheses next to your name if you just are looking for like SEL tips and tricks, like best practices, and then COVID next to your name if you're looking for specifically like Zoom, distance learning, like social distancing kind of ways. And then Corey, maybe you can split us into two groups with that in mind.
Yes, great. And I might, since we have 26, I might see if we can break into 4 groups and so we get more talk time. So let me see if I can work that out. Recreate.
And I think right now, as Corey's dividing us, this is a great time for you to just navigate that Grow Outside website to kind of look as she's kind of figuring us out. So you can sort of see what's on there and see some of the resources that are on there. So you're encouraged to multitask. And just to clarify, if anyone is unsure, you're gonna just stick in your next to your name, whether you wanna be in the general, kind of just general SEL kind of discussion or specifically like distance learning.
Okay, working on it. Okay. Fine. General. general.
It might be an easier way to do this, but that's the easiest way I've seen so far is people
Yep.
renaming themselves. So
Perfect. Okay, and I'm gonna go.
and then maybe we'll come back together. We're done at 2:45, so if we want to come back together at like 2:40, and we can kind of share out and do some, last thoughts.
Okay, let me make sure I have everyone. Okay, I hope I got everyone.
There's a couple that were in the chat of people that couldn't rename themselves as well.
Oh. Okay.
But you might be able to split everybody else up and those people in rooms.
Okay. Great. I'm going to move to 4. Okay. If I missed anyone, I will add you once people start moving. I'll see. Okay. Great. Enjoy, and we'll bring you back shortly. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, it looks like all of these folks, where are my participants?
I didn't get a notification pop up.
Okay, that's where let me see if I can move. Sorry about that. Now, so Emma, oof, why aren't, oh, here we go. So I can, oops. Well, we could talk about it in this room. I don't have the option to assign anymore.
I was in one of my sessions earlier this morning, ran into that too, where like almost everyone split up and there were like 8 of us left in a room. I'm not quite sure why, but I mean,
Can we
I'm kind of
talk?
open to chat together.
Yeah, I would love to.
Corey, do you want to be able to jump into the other rooms and just make sure everybody's doing okay since you're the host? I don't think I can jump.
I will jump over there, and then this looks like a lovely sized group to have a discussion. So
great, thank you.
Enjoy, and we'll be back at 2:40. Is that when? That's only 5 minutes.
I know, but the thing ends at 2:45. They're short sessions.
Okay, we'll see ya.
Okay, we've got a couple.
One of the things that's real helpful is the chat room, actually. We can all see each other, and that's very public. But, for instance, it's real nice that some of the platforms have that private chat so kids can share what they're thinking without, having to worry about being embarrassed. And even in the public chats, they seem to be fairly open with, if you ask, open-ended questions about what they're thinking about and things. So that's been helpful.
I didn't know you could put in a chat without it showing your name, who put it. You're talking about kids could put something kind of like anonymously?
What I mean is they can put something directly to you as opposed to talking to the whole group, which might be 30 kids. They could send a message just to you, which is actually something that's even kind of can bring out more of their personal thoughts than you might even get if you're in person, right? Because
tactics to talking to the students, and then our residential folks are getting ready, planning for the fall and seeing. We haven't gotten any guidance yet from the governor on what fall is going to look like for those types of camps. They've only done it for summer camps, and so people are trying to figure out how do we plan for the fall. SEL has not always been an important part of our outdoor school programming, so we've been requested to give more information about SEL, trauma-informed care, and equity, and how all 3 of those work together, because we're expecting to see that come up in students as we get into programming in the fall, which hopefully we can do.
And anxiety is something that's been growing in the last few decades, and so with this new situation, like you're saying, it's probably just going to increase. So having the background, if we haven't been doing it yet, now's the time to start, right? Is it just you? Is it just you and I in here, or?
No, there's also Amy and Corey.
I jumped
Okay.
in. Yeah,
Sorry.
no
I don't mean to
worries.
dominate the conversation too much.
Do you not see us? It's okay, but is it
No.
no?
I'm used to doing Zoom on a laptop, and I'm doing it on my phone for the first time. So
Oh,
I'm still kind of figuring out where everything is. But
You can scroll, like
oh,
swipe.
nice,
Yeah,
yeah.
scroll
Oh,
past me, swipe left.
Oh,
I'm not. I'm.
I've
I
got it
don't
now.
even have lipstick on.
Okay, I can see everyone now.
I'm intrigued by what you're saying. I'm thinking about hiring, because as someone working with schools, reaching out, we sometimes felt like we had to choose between a company that was good on social emotional or good on science, but there weren't really any that were good at both, even though, they were we loved working with them, but we really wanted a little bit of both. But it's like either you hire the science major or you hire the wannabe counselor in a good way, and it's hard to find that person who can do both even as a regular classroom teacher.
Yeah,
Are you
that's
talking
true.
about an organization, like looking for an organization or like an individual, Amy?
I mean, I guess any of the programs, but I'm especially thinking about, I guess, an organization and who they would hire,
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, you can train people, but also thinking about hiring maybe a different group if the shift is going to be more towards like the social emotional. I don't know.
Right. And then I think there's like a big push in science now for science communication, and even with like sharing results is like part of the practices of science from NGSS. Is like, wow, like those are skills that you develop through social emotional learning, the ability to articulate and share ideas. So it does seem like there's like starting to be crossover, and it's has room for development. Okay, keep the conversation going. I'm going to move to the main session, and yeah, thanks so much, team. I'm going to wrap it up.
No.
Sorry.
Kind of an infinite level of what 5th and 6th graders can do, and that
Yeah,
perhaps our job is to give them the opportunity to share it.
So my two kids are very different in terms of how they'll express their emotions, for sure. And one of them will use quite grown-up language. She's actually the younger one, and the other one is 5th grade right now, and he struggles with naming the emotions that he's going through. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I also wonder how much peer pressure they're undergoing in order to not share that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that social piece about there is, that's an interesting piece too.
Like if you're in a big group, who's going to share that stuff that make themselves vulnerable? And especially when they're not necessarily like friends or stuff, they're just kind of co-workers. As you would be in a classroom, kind of a thing. People they're not necessarily super close to. It must be pretty tough to share.
Yeah, we do community contracts at the beginning of the week with our groups of students, and and specifically using that word of community, that we're building a community this week, because normally we would have like multiple kids from different schools, but and we probably, if we have residential program this year, we probably will not be mixing kids from schools, but normally it's like we're building our own community, and like what that
exactly.
creating this together. Oh, I have my window so small that I didn't even notice everybody else coming back. Sorry, we're still talking.
Welcome back, everybody. And oh my gosh, again, I wish we had more time. It seems like this is something that people are really excited to talk a lot about. And I jumped into several of the breakout rooms and just overheard some amazing discussion. And I'm hoping that you can share that out in the chat. So we can capture some of those ideas. What are takeaways that you had? Anything that you sparked an idea you can implement for distance learning, or for when we invite students back to our places, or even for right now as we may be working remotely, thinking about our own mental health and supporting our staff and community. Okay, and so takeaways. Also, what questions do you still have? Is there anything out there?
So in my group, one of the questions we had was, it's great to see that there's a document and a toolkit. Is this group ever thinking about doing any kind of workshops or trainings that are like more in depth to help folks go through the toolkit, or think a little bit more intentionally about how they're going to implement this into their programming that we can see coming?
Is it Teresa?
Sharissa.
Teresa, thank you. Yeah, I think that is a wonderful idea. And I know right now, we just had the launch party like literally last night, and there's talk about looking for funding sources to keep this going, because yeah, it was just incredibly valuable to share ideas with other organizations and have ideas to bounce off of each other. And so it does, can write that down and bring it back to them and ask, but it also it makes me think about none of us were the experts in this process when we started, and we just paired up and talked about it. And I think that's where Allison and I, we also just a spark, talking about SEL, and we're let's continue to work on this.
I'm pretty sure I have a meeting on my agenda for this week that's like an SEL. Isn't there?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So
please.
I'm co-facilitating with Beatles next Wednesday. We're doing a webinar on SEL, and we will be featuring this tool and talking about a couple of the things inside it. This is Australia, by the way. And I was the coordinator of the group that created this website. With my role with NatureBridge, and we certainly had hoped to do a whole bunch of all of the things that you mentioned. COVID has, drastically impacted our organization, and so staff bandwidth is pretty limited, if non-existent. We are hoping to also present at NAAE, kind of whatever format that will look like in the fall, and are seeking other opportunities. For the webinar, I am planning and including it in my follow-up materials to all participants. So if you are registered for this workshop today, for the conference, you will get the Beatles link. And I will see if I can grab it and stick it onto the chat as well.
I'll see you there, Australia. I'll be there.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. I think we're just about at the end of our time too. Sorry about that. Gosh, there's never enough time.
And thanks for the concrete resources, Estrella. Super helpful. Great. I'm just checking the comments.
Good.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please explore the Grow Outside website, the Beatles session next week, and we hope to see you more.
Great. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Hey, Corey, I had a question. Can you hold on a second?
Of course.
I tried to go to the Grow Outside website, and it seemed like somebody else had taken that web address. Have you had trouble getting to that website?
There's a hyphen. Put a hyphen in there.
What is the one without a hyphen? Now I'm curious. Am I going to regret this?
It seemed like patio furniture and cannabis seeds.
I Googled Grow Outside before because I saw the description, and a full page of search results was all about growing pot outside.
Right. Also helpful. Also good to know.
So it's
grow-outside.
Just put it
.org, and it's a .org too. So yeah, grow-outside.org. It's like, okay, don't Google this on a work computer.
Right. Well, I already did. So.
All right, bye. I thought that was funny.
Thank you.
Great website. Thanks. Oh, by the way, you still have some lorem ipsum, on the bottom on how to use this website.
Yes, thank you. We're finalizing that section.
Okay,
all
I just want to
good
let
by
you
the
know.
weekend. Yeah,
Always
exactly.
recognize a new website when you find Laura Mipsum.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Corey. That was great.
Oh my gosh, Allison, I'm so thankful for your ability to synthesize your. I had just heard last night, like someone was like, my brain works like a crock pot, not like a microwave. And he's like, I needed a little extra time to process. I feel like you're like a microwave. Like you're just like, okay, like great. I'm seeing these themes, and then.
Yeah. I'm actually really loving this book. I know we talked about it before, but I'm like, this is like really good. And it's been talking about like the chapter I just read was like about like identifying your strengths and like figuring out like how you operate. And I was realizing that like, you know, like, I don't know, just like thinking, like doing a little bit of reflection on like the way that I lead has been really interesting. But anyway, if you're looking for a light summer reading, The Art of Coaching Teams has been super good so far. So I'm only on chapter 3, but it's been good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. How do you think it went?
I think it went good. Yeah, I was a little nervous when there wasn't a lot of suggestions for the breakout rooms. But I actually think that perhaps people got what they needed out of that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it worked out okay, even though, yeah. And I was unsure of whether it made sense to have bigger groups so that there's more voices, or whether it made sense to have more time to speak. I felt like in my small group, but I also kind of got the odds and ends at the, you know, like mine was like the little odds and ends. There was a little bit of like, there was quite a bit of pausing in there, you know, and I was but that also sometimes happens when there is someone who's the leader in the group too, because they're kind of following my lead, and it's a little harder for me to just be a participant. So hard to tell. So how did the groups that you popped your head into go?
It was really interesting. I heard some discussion of like utilizing Zoom, like more technical things to support SEL, like how to chat directly with a student instead of to the whole group. And then the other one was really interesting. Amy, who is the Kaylee, she's doing the initiative for California. I've never met her until this morning.
Yeah, I'd never seen her either.
She's great. She was thinking about if organizations are hiring, and that it seems like people are often strong in science or strong in SEL, but it's not often both, and that maybe there's an opportunity, or maybe that's changing. And yeah, I thought it was a worthwhile discussion. Like they were definitely flowing with each other.
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Sweet. Awesome.
Great.
Well, thanks, Corey.
Thank you so much
All right.
for joining me in this. Okay,
Talk
we'll
to you
see
later.
ya. Bye.
Bye.